step number 1 is just flattening out the base. So we will do this so it actually looks like the chucho is actually standing on the ground, for example. So maybe something like this, a little bit more, just using the trim dynamic, super basic. Just smoothing it out a little bit afterwards, just to make it look a little bit softer, to make the edges look a little bit like better, so they'll have a little bit more detail to them. So it just works a little bit better in as a whole, you know. Okay, for the eyes, I'm just gonna add a sphere, or like append a new sphere, right? So then I'm gonna scale this sphere down to the somewhat correct of size of a chucho eye. So maybe something like this. It's very easy to make the eyes too big, you know. And then just geometry, and we're gonna mirror and wield. Something like this. Add the like symmetry with X again. Something like this. And maybe push them a little bit more away from each other. Maybe. I don't know if I made the eyes a little bit too small. Maybe a little bit bigger. Something like that kind of works actually. Then we're gonna take a look at like this as a whole. Let's see. We can just pull, like, think of this as the center of the eye, like the pupil, right? So we're just gonna pull this towards where we actually want the eye to be looking. So I want something like this, because it's a lot easier to work with this as topology, right? So we're just gonna add with the clay buildup brush, we're just gonna create this like small circle here. Let's create this like eye shape and then smooth it out. Something like that. For zero mesh, we're just gonna keep the same amount of like overall topology, right? Zero mesh. Then something like this, so we get a little bit of a better topology for the like eye, right? Alright, so for this, if we go back to the like big piece, we're just gonna zero mesh that as well. And I wanna keep the same amount there as well, so zero mesh. Something like that. And then I'm actually going to use subdivision on it. So I'm just going to subdivide it real quick, you know. And then now we're going to make sure that the proportions work as a whole. So the proportions here, I think they work kind of correctly, but the eyes could maybe be a little bit of a different scale. Maybe they should be a little bit close together. It's so important that you actually take a look at the proportions. Make sure that they work together and not just that the eyes work as like by themselves and like the body works by itself, but you need to make sure that they work together as a character. So that's really important. But I think this actually works kind of nicely. Maybe the eyes could be a little bit bigger. The next step is to be adding some poly paint. So for the poly paint, I'm just gonna start with this like blue. Start out with this one. I'm gonna switch the color. Gonna go to blue. Make it a little bit darker, and we're just gonna draw in like these cool shapes. And this you can actually do with a layer. So go down to layers, add layer right here, so you can actually draw with the layer, because that will make it a lot simpler if you want to make some changes. So I'm just gonna draw in the shapes of this like cool pattern to make sure that my like chucho has these kind of patterns to it, you know. I'm gonna make this like liquid pattern, so something like this. Yeah, very like cool looking, you know. So something like that, maybe something like this, and maybe up here as well, something like that. Not too complicated, right? And then you can go with the layer and just change it a little bit to make it to blend a little bit better. And now, for the eyes, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna create a new layer. And then around the edge here, as you see, it's a little bit more like darker. So we're gonna add this like darker blue around here as well. And that's for like dark blue. So we have one layer for dark blue, and then we're gonna create another layer for like the eye color. So now we're gonna use the standard brush. So I'm gonna change the alpha to alpha 58, and then I'm gonna change the dots to drag rect. So now I can just drag on the eyes this like perfect sphere or circle. So I'm just really simply gonna drag it out, something like this. And then on top of this, we have this like strong yellow color, right? So let's see if we can get something like that, something like this, I would say. Just gonna drag that on top, something like this. And then on top of this, we have like this really like black pupil. I would say something like that, maybe a little bit more here. And then here we have like this really cartoonish eye, and it looks super cool, I think. So right here, we're just gonna add like this circle more in the middle, and then let's make it sure that it actually has some kind of transition into the rest of the eye. Something like that. As you can see, pretty cool, right? You can change from the material that you're using to toy plastic. Let's see, toy plastic right here. And then now it ain't going to be showing anything because we used mRGB to like set the material while we were actually like choosing the colors and everything. So now I'm just gonna bake all my layers first. Make sure that you actually like remove like the recording before you bake, because otherwise it's gonna give you some really like weird results, guys. Instead of having mRGB, I'm just gonna choose M for material, right? Material channel. And then we're just gonna go to color, fill object. And then for the eyes, the same thing. Material, fill object. And you can see it's now shiny and it looks a lot more like a Chucho. It's super cute. And yeah, that's basically how you do it. That's basically how you create a Chucho within Zbrush. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, or if you want more content like this, please hit that like button or subscribe to the channel, whatever suits you best. And yeah, I hope I'll see you next time. Bye!